Chapter 4 of The Voice of the Lion Was Heard in the Land. A Good Omens fanfiction, written by A.N.D. Read aloud by SkyAsimaru. If you enjoy this podfic, you can check out the original story on Archive of Our Own. If you would like to hear more of my recordings or see some of my own work, you can find me through the pen and screen name of SkyAsimaru. The Voice of the Lion Was Heard in the Land. Chapter 4 Paradise Lost. Summary: Tony's fall was fast and brutal. Warning: this is the chapter that earned the homophobia tag. One by one, the original members of Adam's animals had moved on. Wensleydale was the first, shuffling into the BBC budgeting department soon after CBeebies bought the show, eventually moving on to his life goal of chartered accountancy. Brian was next, moving in front of the camera to host game shows. Pepper held on much longer, but she finally dropped out of television entirely to work for a social justice group. Then Arthur Young became very ill, leaving Adam to split more and more of his attention between helping his parents and Leo, until the day he finally was forced to pick a side. He chose his father. He would always choose his father. But he also tried to protect his work family, selling Leo and friends to a new company in order to preserve everyone's jobs. Gabriel was tall, handsome, impeccably dressed, American, and smiled so many perfect white teeth that it took a moment to realize that the words he was saying in such a "we're all friends here" tone were horrible, dismissive, and belittling. Az feared him from the moment of introduction. Tony simply loathed him and didn't attempt to hide it. Those big teeth were in full display as Gabriel gathered the production staff the day Adam Young's buyback option expired, and announced that they were going to make just a few changes to Adam's vision. Very minor ones, but ones that brought Gabriel's Arc Productions more into key demographics and maximized marketing, blah blah, something else ending in IZE. Tracy stared at Gabriel in wary disgust. Every now and then, Shadwell patted her hand, usually right after lines about balancing gender representation and how we want to use the show to encourage little girls to embrace traditional options. Tony and Newton scribbled down buzzword bingo cards, exchanged them, and started to play. Az let everything wash over him in a wave of horror until Gabriel mentioned the woefully underutilized options for brand name merchandising. He raised his hand. Gabriel ignored it. Az left his hand up so long he could feel the blood draining out of it. Gabriel ignored it. Az put his hand down. Gabriel smiled wider until Az stood up, announcing, "It was a point of principle with the Youngs that Leo and friends never become a mere front for selling tat to children. They and Miss Moonchild made certain of that." They had. There were exactly 2 types of official merchandise for sale, both at as low a price as possible. Small stuffed animals of Leo, Simon, and Chandra. the 3 most popular characters, and the back catalog of episodes on DVD. Everything else, paper dolls, coloring pages, simple board and card games, was downloadable for free.
Leaving a whole lot of people who aren't us profiting off their own things on Redbubble and Teespring and other places, I know.
This was also true. Adam had looked the other way as long as whatever was being sold was suitable for children. Tony was currently wearing a t-shirt with "That's not what I planned" written on it in 15 languages.
Adam Young was young,
Gabriel said, then chuckled loudly at his own joke.
It's time for wiser heads to realize the financial upside of licensing possibilities. We've already had our lawyers send out cease and desist orders with the threat of lawsuit over any unlicensed material from any online vendor.
There was a sharp gasp from Shadwell. Everyone unofficially knew that he'd been making serious bank on slogan t-shirts and character keychains, and everyone left him to it. Pepper had even helped him, because the vast majority of the proceeds they supposedly didn't know about had been funneled into NHS and homeless charities. A tiny fraction of the profit funded grocery runs for Az and Tracy, who had made a point of trying to outcook each other's goodies on table reading days. Gabriel's momentum having been broken, Tracy was the next to speak up.
What do you mean about traditional options for girls?
She asked sharply. Most of the women brought in to guest star had been voicing competitors or teammates for the sports-minded, intellectual Chandra the Cheetah. Those perfect American teeth were aimed at her.
Oh, nothing to worry about, nothing at all. We just thought, well, your lovely little hedgehog shouldn't be the butt of jokes for being a homebody, should she? We should have more storylines about her being proud of being house-proud.
If you think so,
Tracy said, starting to settle back, only to launch forward again.
What about Nadia Khan? There was some discussion of adding her to the regular cast instead of just guest starring as Ayesha the Antelope. Are you still planning that?
Gabriel's second in command, Michael, stepped in smoothly. Once we get our marketing profits rolling in, we can start discussing adding to the cast. And of course, there will be a little more for all of you as well. We want to take care of you as family, because we think of all of you as our family. One big, happy, traditional family. Az swallowed hard. He knew how happy traditional families felt about people like him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Tony doing the same. It's been a pleasure, Newton said, handing his filled bingo card to Tony outside the studio door. Some of the squares had been checked off more than once. Synergistic had 5.
You're not even going to give him a chance, then?
Tony asked. Newton shook his head. My agent, Anathema Device, you've met her. She says she's had a bad feeling ever since the sale was announced. She's already looking for other opportunities for me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out business cards, offering them to the others. I know you all think it's silly that my agent works on intuition, but she's never been wrong, and she's always finding the most amazing jobs. It's like magic. Tony backed away, holding up his hands.
Thanks. I'm happy with BLZB Unlimited.
Sandalphon brothers have been taking good care of me for my entire career,
Az said, but he took a card just to be polite. Newton was gone by the next table read. The changes were so subtle at first that everyone was second-guessing whether they were happening at all. Harriet the Hedgehog was getting more screen time, but Chandra the Cheetah was slowly being phased out. Leo's role was shifting to become more and more authoritarian, although Az's soft, friendly delivery managed to turn orders into requests and threats of punishment into expressions of disappointment.
"No!"
Gabriel said firmly at the latest table reading.
"You're not doing it right. You need to be angry at Simon. Simon messed up."
"Simon always messes up," Az replied mildly. "It's important for little children to understand that they aren't bad if they make mistakes." "I don't think you're grasping the values of our new target market," Michael said, smooth as always.
"I'm certainly grasping that I don't like it,"
Az shot back.
"I don't understand what market is worth, what you're doing to this show."
"Aye,"
Shadwell chipped in.
"Our ratings are starting to slide."
"And we've lost our partnerships with Japan, Australia, and Peru,"
Tracy chipped in. Gabriel smiled at them, the fake friendly grin. All teeth and no warmth.
"I hate having all those teeth deployed at me,"
Az thought grumpily.
"It's like being patronized by a horse." "How nice that you take such an interest,"
Gabriel chirped at them.
"But really, there's no need to worry about any of that. You stick to voice acting and leave the marketing to—"
"Did you just tell us not to bother our pretty little heads?"
Tracy snapped. Michael cut in, cool and calm, to stop the argument. Now, we are gaining a great deal of attention with our chosen market. Our new focus on traditional family values has brought us to the top of the conservative, religious demographic. Why, we're more popular in America than VeggieTales."
"We work for the BBC,"
Tony pointed out.
"Our mandate is the entire British market, not American evangelicals."
The teeth disappeared.
"Behave yourself," Gabriel warned. "There is already a lot of pushback from our new viewers about having a snake on the show. Serpents remind them of the fall of Eve."
Tony lounged in his chair and sneered.
"Simon's the most popular character on this show. You lose him, your ratings won't just slide."
Gabriel sneered back. Michael glared at everyone, ending on Tony. "No one is irreplaceable, and we won't have anyone working on this show who doesn't reflect our values."
"Values like?"
Tony challenged.
"Wholesome family values," Gabriel said. "Don't think we don't know about you and that disgusting nightclub. Be careful who you pal around with."
"I'll pal around with anyone I want to, pal."
Az had listened to the argument with increasing distress, but whenever he mentioned it to Tony over the next few days, Tony blew him off.
"I really am the most popular character. No offense, Angel. They don't dare do anything to me."
"None taken." Simon got over twice as much fan mail as Leo. Az loved Tony, so Az even loved being outshined. Mostly.
"But do be careful. I don't know what I'd do if anything happened to you."
"You'd go on being Leo."
Uncharacteristically solemn, Tony came over and laid his hands on Az's shoulders, looking deep into his eyes.
Outside of you, Leo is the best thing I've got in my life. We made something beautiful, and if that wanker is going to try to ruin it, I'm going to fight back. I want you to fight back too, no matter what.
Tony shook him slightly, smiling.
I've adored how you're using delivery to change the meaning of that shitty dialogue.
Gabriel doesn't think it's cute.
You're so hot when you blink innocently and remind him you're doing the lines exactly as written. I always want to shag you right there on the table.
Az laughed.
I don't think that would fit their synergistic portrayal of wholesome traditional family values, dear boy.
Tony's fall was fast and brutal. He never knew who told Michael that he planned on going to the Green Carnation that night. Az had been trying to keep him home after the threat, but as much as he loved Az, Tony missed the crowds and the lights, and the sound so loud that he could feel it resonating in his chest. So, every now and then, he went out for a night on the town. Tony hadn't even gone home yet when the tabloids started arriving at the newsstands. At first he thought what he was seeing was the product of anxiety and alcohol. But the more he walked back to the flat, the more he sobered up, the more he got scared. The headlines were huge, screaming, ugly, cruel.
Would you trust this man with your children? Simon the Snake's secret life!
The fish wrap must have gone to press as soon as they had photos to reproduce. That one was from the first hour of the club's opening. There was Tony kissing his replacement DJ on the cheek. There was Tony, tie and shirt open, holding a brandy bottle high in one hand while working the DJ controls with another, hips obviously swaying.
It's only natural. Snakes mate in orgies.
Another photo, only a few hours old. Tony on the dance floor in a crowd of men. Az knew he'd never cheat, never dreamed of cheating. But what the fuck was that guy doing behind him? And that other one? Whoever had taken the photo had perfectly timed the snap, so that the dancers' hands looked like they were grabbing at each other's crotches. Worst of all,
is the BBC sheltering another predator? Anthony Tony Crowley's secret fondness for touching youngsters.
Beneath it was, oh God, oh God, oh God! Those were photos of him at the anniversary convention. Official Leo photos of him kissing babies and holding toddlers and, oh God, oh God, oh God! It had all been so innocent. He'd never, and every single one of them was cropped to show how he was supporting the kids. The way anyone would hold a kid. The way everyone would hold a kid. The only way to hold a kid safely and securely, with a hand cupping their arse or upper thigh. Suddenly paranoid, Tony looked up and down the street, trying to see anyone who looked out of place among the nightclubbers walking it off and the delivery people stocking the newspapers. He didn't see anyone. But that didn't mean he wasn't leading the mystery photographer straight to Az. He dodged into a hotel lobby, discovered that he had one of Az's credit cards in his wallet, and checked in under the assumed name. He'd meant to call Az, to warn him, to tell him to avoid the papers, but he'd taken too long. It rang over to voicemail. Then again. Again. Without Tony to drive him, Az must have decided to take the tube to work, where there was no signal. Tony kept trying again anyway. Again. Again. Just as he was about to hit redial, his phone rang with a short clip of You're My Best Friend by Queen.
Angel, you're okay.
Az sighed, long and heavy, down the line.
Look, don't come into work yet. You've been at the club all night. You wouldn't know. There's a situation.
I've seen the headlines, Tony whimpered. You know I'd never fool around on you. I'd never hurt a kid. They're saying I hurt kids.
I know.
Az didn't lose his temper often, but Tony knew that firm tone.
We're going to fix this. You need to call BLZB. Get one of their lawyers on the case. This is libel. Defamation of character.
I don't even know where they got the photos.
It was Michael. Gabriel just told us that if anyone else steps out of line, they'll get smeared in the tabloids too.
Through the fear and anxiety, Tony scoffed.
They've got nothing on you. You're as pure as an angel.
There was a long, ugly pause.
Angel?
There was a fumbling sound. Then Michael's chilly voice came through.
If you really love this man as much as these interesting goodbye kisses from last night suggest, you won't come back here anymore. If you try, I'll ruin him too. Let all the kiddies know that their beloved Leo is nothing but a fat old pansy.
You haven't ruined me yet, you...
Are you sure?
Michael hung up abruptly. Tony stared at his phone for a while, in horrified shock, but realized the sooner he followed Az's advice, the better. With shaking hands, he dialed his agent.
BLZB, this is Dagon. Oh, it's you. Well, that spares me the call, saying you're fired.
It's all lies! You know it's all lies!
I'm sure it is,
Dagon said, in a tone that suggested they weren't sure and didn't care either way.
Still, we have to protect the good name of BLZB Unlimited, so good luck and goodbye. I'm blocking your number now.
Tony was left staring at his phone in shock again. After a while, it began to ring again. Numbly, he answered the call. Pepper didn't waste any time on pleasantries.
Any of this true?
Well, you know I'm gay, and I worked at the Carnation.
Not that. The kids. Any of that true?
I swear to God, no! You know me, Pepper! You know me! You've known me for 11 years! I've never hurt a child! I could never! All those hospital visits I've done! Was there ever one complaint? One whisper? I've babysat for your own children! Did you ever, for 1 second, think I'd... that?
A brief silence in which Tony's aching heart almost stopped beating.
No, never. I'm going to talk to one of the lawyers on staff here. Whoever did this isn't just hurting you, they're hurting the name of Leo and Friends, and I'm not going to stand for that. Adam shouldn't have to deal with that on top of his family.
How is Arthur?
There was a long silence.
They say he might pull through, but not if he has a shock like this. Are you home?
No, I'm at the Strand Palace Hotel.
Stay there. I'll send you the details of the lawyer when I've got them. In the meantime, don't talk to anyone except our lawyer and Az. Got that? Nobody else. No trying to explain your side. It'll just get twisted up and used against you.
Smart advice, but hard to follow. Tony's phone rang all day long. Numbers he didn't know were easy to block, but he was also getting calls from Tracy, Shadwell, mates from the Green Carnation, former cast members of Leo. Texts were pouring in as well, support from the people he knew, filth from any number of blocked or unknown numbers. Finally, he turned his phone off. He waited for Az to knock on the hotel door. He waited for Az to tell the hotel staff he'd lost the key to his room and just let himself in. He waited, and he waited, and he waited, until at last he broke down and used the hotel phone.
Oh, dear boy.
Az sighed.
It's been a terrible day without you. The place has been crawling with reporters, trying to get us to give them a soundbite. All of us refuse to talk to them. Well, all of us actors.
What about the wankers? Az didn't need a translation.
If we didn't know he'd told Michael to do it, you could almost believe Gabriel's shock and denials. Absolutely horrified at false accusations, sure you'll defend yourself, or some sort of mistake, absolutely revolted at the suggestion that gay men are predators.
He also told them I'm fired, I bet.
Says you resigned to put all your energies to clearing your name. Those fuckers!
Az!
They set you up! They must have been just waiting for their chance. Tony, they've already replaced you. We came into work today, and there's a brand new guy named Haster playing some slimy toady.
Do you mean he plays a toad, or he's a toady?
The same difference,
Az said grimly.
The famous friendship of the Leo cast has finally failed. None of us were more than barely polite.
The realities of Tony's situation were starting to sink in.
Oh, God, Az, if the journos are sniffing around, I don't dare get near you. I'm not dragging you down with me.
I'd rather be in the mud with you than...
No, you've got to stay and save Leo. I couldn't live with myself if I took Leo away from you.
Hang Leo! He's just a cartoon! You're...
Look.
Tony suppressed a sob.
It's been fun, yeah? But maybe we should take a break.
What? Tony, no, don't!
Tony hung up. He didn't pick up the receiver, not when it rang and rang and rang again. Pepper's lawyer, a fussy perfectionist named Tyler, went on a major public relations offensive. Various LGBTQ groups joined the defense, accurately recognizing that the real complaint was simply that Tony was gay. The hospitals, dutifully carrying out their requirements to protect the children in their care, ran internal inquiries and loudly proclaimed that not only did they not find anything wrong, the children on their wards were inconsolable without Tony and his stuffed Simon visiting them. Even half the people pictured from the anniversary convention wrote indignantly to the papers, defending Tony's innocence. Yet the story was so salacious that Tony couldn't immediately shake it off. Advised by Tyler to lay low, haunted by the terror he'd ruin as well. In the end, Tony didn't even go back to the flat to collect his clothes. Newt found where he was hiding. He claimed Anathema had scried him out and connected him with device talents. It was Anathema and one of Leo's many influential acting friends that provided a practical solution until the gossip died down. A quickly signed contract, a handshake deal, and a multi-month live theater tour in the States under a different name. Az never knew, as he lay weeping alone in the bed he shared with Tony, that his lover hair newly dyed, wardrobe newly changed, was at that very moment sobbing over a script as British Air swept him away from the scandals of London voice actor Tony Crowley into a new life as Anthony J., Scottish character actor. To be continued in Chapter 5.
Thank you for reading. Please drop by the archive and let the author know what you thought of their work.